so first off is my personal favorite character, Blitz. So I don't even know if there was a thought behind any of this process. I just kind of went with it, and honestly, I really, really love what I ended out with. Very, very cool design. I fucking wish it was real. I was thinking about keeping really similar body proportions to how he has in the show. I wanted his hands to be big. I wanted him to have hooves, I wanted him to keep his horns, his face shape, I wanted to keep that really similar. Instead of giving him clothes, I wanted to give him a kind of like a mane almost. So I went with that idea, and I guess you could say there was a tiny bit of Zoroark inspiration. Not really much. I just guessed that like it has similar colors to Zoroark, and I end up keeping a similar theme to, you know how Zoroark has its main flow so long that it ends out becoming its tail. I ended out doing that in this design. I wanted to keep the slash kind of markings over Blitz's eyes. I wanted to keep the brooch that he wears from his mother. Instead, I ended up putting that on top of his head because I didn't really want to put it where it was in the show, and I didn't want to give him clothes, so it's kind of part of his body design. I gave him really long sharp claws because you guys know I'm a sucker for that. I gave him a very similar tail to how he actually has, but like I said earlier, I kept it kind of flow from the mane. I love this in character designs. I did this inspiration with Imp Royal 2 in a previous video, but this one's executed rather differently. I gave him a zigzag mouth because you guys know I also love that. I kept his white marking or scar, if you will, in his design. I feel like that breaks up the colors really nicely on him, and I pretty much use the same colors in his actual design. I use the white. Instead of using a black, I do use like a charcoal gray. I use the yellow in the eyes. I use the kind of pinkish red hue in the eyes, as well as the skin. The red parts on his jacket I end up incorporating into the arms, again just to kind of break up the color design in the Pokemon form. I make his body red, his hooves red, and I use the charcoal color for the mane and the tail, as well as the forearms and the legs. Also in the horns as well. Okay, here is our beloved Blitz. Let's see what he looks like as a Pokemon. And this is Imprison, the dark type. This Pokemon may act aggressive and rude, but once it opens its heart to someone, it becomes a big softie. It is a skilled fighter, but can be quite self-destructive. It is rather fond of horse Pokemon like Ponyta and Mudsdale. What else can I say other than I really like this design? What do you guys think of it? I think it's a perfect mix between cool, cute, and low-key kinda sexy, not gonna lie. I also wanted to include a little bit about his affinity for horses, so I feel like that would reflect in the Pokemon as well. Next up is our beloved, wholesome little bean, Moxie. I've always gotta do one character dirty. I feel like it's become kind of a trope in these Hazbin / HELLUVA BOSS character to Pokemon design videos. One character always gets done dirty. This time it's poor little Moxie. Immediately I was like, I want to make him tiny and cute. I want to make him like a jelly bean. So we use like a small cute fairy type Pokemon as our inspiration. What else can I say other than what you're seeing on screen is the cutest little button of a man. I love Moxie so much as a character, and I wanted to make him like a fairy and dark type. Like, it's really cute and it's really adorable, and wholesome until you piss it off and then it becomes really strong. But actually, just look at this little jelly bean. Just look at this little jelly bean of a man. Like, how can you not love and adore him? Just as a character in general, and now as a Pokemon, I just make him a little jelly bean. I give him big cute eyes. I give him his cheek spots. I give him a cute little mouth with a little fucking snaggletooth. Oh, I know I said I did him dirty, but honestly I actually kind of like this design. It's a little bit cheeky, yeah, but I actually think it's really cute. It's the simplest design by far, but simple doesn't always mean bad. I actually quite enjoy this. Here is our handsome, wholesome, delightful man, Moxie, and here is what he would be if he were a Pokemon. This is Devilite, the fairy and dark type. Devilite is a small and polite Pokemon. However, when angered, it can be quite a strong opponent. This Pokemon is very protective of its trainer and friends, so angering one is not a good idea. Okay, look at him. Just fucking look at him. I love him. I want to pick him up and squeeze his little fucking cheeks. All I want to do is catch one, put it on my team, and nickname him Jellybean and love him and hold him forever. What do you guys think of Devilite? Next up is, you guessed it, Millie. Now, a couple of people in previous videos said that they wanted to see a Pikachu clone. So I thought Millie might actually be a cute candidate for that. And I feel like with her cute split buck teeth in her design, it would translate well as a Pikachu clone. So I started out with like a rough concept of a typical Pikachu clone body. I wanted to make this one a little bit taller and a little bit more slender than some of the other Pikachu clone designs. I wanted to give her a love heart shaped tail. I wanted to give her big cute ears. The stripes in her horns I have used in the inside of her ears, and I've given her the typical Pikachu shaped eyes. I toyed with the idea of different kinds of eyelashes. I ended up going with these cute little ones. Big, typical Pikachu cheeks as needed for a Pikachu clone design. I gave her her buck teeth, like I said. I feel like they would work perfect in this design. While this design is relatively simple, I think it actually works rather well, especially when we get to the colors. You can definitely see the inspiration. I keep the inside of the ears the same colors as her horns, just to relate that back to the character. Yellow cheeks. This time I toyed with the idea of pink for the main color, and then I go, no, I change my mind. I actually do want red as the main color. I switch around the whites and the yellows a bit just to toy with different ideas, and then I come to a head in the final design. So this is Millie, our beautiful, tiny, little feisty southern princess, and here is what she would be if she were a Pokemon. This is Chi-Killer, the electric and fairy type. It is small and fast. While appearing quite friendly, it is actually rather cheeky and impishly playful. Often mistaken for a weak Pokemon, it is actually very physically powerful. They are often seen coupled with Devilite. Now, yes, I had to put in a reference to Moxie and Millie being a couple. Of course I have to. I am a sucker for romance. I have to say, this is my favorite Pikachu clone. What do you guys think of Chi-Killer? Do you wish this one was real? Alright, next on the list is a big fan favorite. We have Luna, our beloved hellhound. Right off the bat, I went into this design and I felt like all of the others have been on 2 legs. I wanted to put this particular design on 4 legs since Luna's kind of furry-esque. We don't really need another furry-esque Pokemon right now. So I wanted to put her on all 4s and see what I could do with the design if I made this drastic change. I was inspired by a fair few canine Pokemon such as Houndoom, Houndoom's Mega Form, Lycanroc, the different Lycanroc forms. You can see that I add a mane in this design. I wanted to incorporate her hair, but I didn't just want it to be basic hair, so I made it a mane instead. Now that I look at it, the mane is actually giving me Luxray vibes, but I didn't think of that at the moment. For the feet, I wanted big sharp claws For the tail, I wanted a long flowing wolf tail. I really wanted to get across with this design that it wasn't too complicated, that it wasn't too over the top. For the typing, I juggled with a few different typings. I had normal dark in my head for a while, but I ended up going with dark and fighting in the end, just because I feel like Luna as a character is so feisty that to me fighting needed to be in the type. Even though her design doesn't necessarily scream fighting type, sometimes Pokemon have types that you just don't really expect from their physical appearance. This could be one of those, honestly. I wanted to keep her markings relatively similar to what she has in her show design. I do end out changing very tiny things about it, like I do include the bite in her ear. I feel like that's very important. For her, I keep most of the same colors. I do change the hair color. I do end up making the mane dark instead of a light gray. I think mainly the biggest changes, aside from her being on 4 legs now, are that her ears are different, her hair is different, and the mane is also present. I wanted to include a little bit of the original hair color in the mane, so I end up putting some fancy highlight stripes. And honestly, I feel like that pulls this design together quite well. Okay, here is our beloved feisty gal Luna. Let's see what our beautiful Hellhound looks like as a Pokemon. Now this is Hellhound, the dark and fighting type. This wild Pokemon travels alone. It is independent and quite aggressive to anyone it comes across. Once tamed, it is very loyal, however. Getting into this Pokemon's heart is a long and hard endeavor, but worthwhile. What do you guys think of this design? I actually kind of like the fact that it doesn't look overly feminine. I feel like this design is very gender neutral, and I actually really enjoy that about this particular Pokemon design. What do you guys think about Hellhound? Our last Pokemon design of today is the one, the only Stolas. Now, as much as I want to get every single character done in this video, we're gonna have to do this in a couple of parts. I would love to get a lot more characters done of both shows, but right now, let's focus on Stolas. For this design, I did have a few different things in mind, but honestly, Stolas himself, if you just kind of shrink him down and slap a typing on him, he is a fucking Pokemon. For this Pokemon design, I really just took most of the inspiration from his design in the show. There's not too much about this I actually change. I just make him look a little bit more Pokemon-esque. I change his body from being very long and very tall to pretty much an actual bird body. So he's got those big bird talons, he's got those long wings. I decided to make his cape design his actual wings instead of using his hand feather designs that he has got going on. So I think of this Pokemon as a legendary. I honestly, like I said, I don't change too much about his design. His crown is a little bit more simplified. He's got the fuzz on the top of his cape. I end up extending that like he has in his character design too. His wings slash cape are torn at the ends, probably from all the battling that this Pokemon has done in its time. I think of it as a very ancient Pokemon that hasn't really been seen very often and has a lot of lore and rumors behind it, a lot of speculation, but like I said, I don't think people have seen this Pokemon very often or in a very long time. I thought about that while I was doing the design and the colors as well. I love doing these characters as Pokemon, and it's also very fun doing them as legendaries. There are a few in earlier episodes that I think of as legendaries and mythicals. Like I think of Alistair as a legendary, I think of Charlie as a mythical, and Stolas is definitely a legendary in my eyes. Like I said, I just keep so much of his design because I feel like he works so well already as a Pokemon inspiration. I do end out using the gold in the crown for the talons as well. I just wanted to include that color in one other place so it was tied in a little bit more. I play around a lot with the color that I want for the body. I go back and forth from white to grey to the dark grey, and in the end I'm just not happy with the white, so I end up going with grey for both, but I incorporate the white gradient that he has in his chest feathers. However, I don't incorporate the gradient that he has on the top of his head that makes his feathers darker. I just feel like that's not necessary, and I wanted to keep the top of his head where his secondary eyes are looking more prominent. Here is our darling, beautiful, legendary man himself, Stolas. One of my favorite characters. He is absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. Let's see what he would be if he were a Pokemon. This is the legendary Pokemon, Royale, a flying and psychic type. This rare Pokemon is said to have the power to turn others it sees to stone. Legend says it appears to those who desire power. Not much else is known about this ancient legendary bird. Okay, you guys, what do you think of Royale?